age 26 season. Last year had 146 innings with a 3.58 ERA, 209 strikeouts in those 146 innings. He gets a 6-year, $170 million contract. He was due to be a free agent in 2027, so he had 2 years left, this year and next year, before he could become a free agent. So the Red Sox had the leverage. They use it. And yet Crochet still gets his AAV is $28 million. So he's on like among the highest average annual value for starting pitchers. Your thoughts?
I think this is one of the most unique contracts done in the history of the game.
Really?
I have a comparison. It's the Tyler Glasnow, who the Dodgers gave an extension to last year after acquiring him from the Dodgers. He was another guy, high-end stuff, but just had been hurt a lot.
Right.
But even when you look at this, 529 and 2/3 innings, it's still 300 more innings than Crochet. And one other thing, besides Glasnow, every other pitcher who has ever who has gotten a 9-figure deal has thrown at least 800 innings. So we're in this area because where you are really betting on a stock based on last year's performance.
And
last year's performance was terrific.
Yeah.
But consider what we're dealing with. Relief pitcher, miss a year for Tommy John, relief pitcher, great starter.
Right.
That is his run up here. Do you believe it? If you believe it, this might, even with the numbers you say, it might turn out to be a great contract for Boston.
You know what? My gut feeling when I heard it, I was like, wow, what a great move by the Red Sox. Like, they're now investing. They know you have to keep your signature piece, especially in the rotation. But his ERA plus last year was 115. I mentioned a 3.58 ERA. 100 is league average for an ERA plus, so he's only 15% better than league average. That's not fantastic for 146 innings. That's it. Take a look at him year by year. If I was just looking at reference, like if I wasn't influenced, I'm actually unduly influenced, Joe, by doing MLB Tonight's in the preseason, and I got most of his starts, the days he pitched. I was working, and he looked fantastic. But look at this. Career stats, his ERA, and his innings pitched. It's not, if I'm just looking at his baseball reference page, I'm thinking, you gave $170 million to that guy. So what's correct? Wishing you had the track record, or looking, and especially the way we look at pitching in this day and age, Joel, where whatever you have, that stuff can be measured, and what you have is what's happening right now, and what's happening right now is what's important.
You know, one of the fascinating things that's happened over time, BK, with free agency is it used to be if you had a great track record, you got paid. And part of the great track record was innings. Now that's almost held against you in free agency, where it's like, well, you've got a lot of mileage on you. Like, for example, Michael King is going to be a free agent this offseason. I think if he pitches anything close to last year, he's going to do great because people are going to go, wow, not a lot of innings.
Yeah, the odometer.
You know? And I think so here, the Red Sox are saying we have ways both with eyesights and analytics to say what your stuff is.
Right.
And the stuff is great. And I also think it is an interesting time in Red Sox history. They have not been a good team for several years in a very big market. They've been accused since the moment they traded Mookie Betts of kind of not going for it in a way that their marketplace
and not being a top-tier club anymore.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, they're at a moment where they might have the best farm system in the sport, good enough to trade a couple of big pieces to get Crochet and still have great stuff that's starting to get through to the major leagues. And this offseason, we saw Bregman, Buehler, and now this move, which suggests they're trying to deal with this at both ends. We've got this funnel coming.
Right.
Can we put, especially pitching, which is not, their best prospects are all positional guys.
Right.
So can we put a piece that will be here with those positional guys for a period of time?
I like the move. I think it's
a calculated gamble on an upside arm.
He was the number one swing and miss guy in the game last year, number one. So that's what plays. And yet, would I like to have, again, to get to the human aspect of his resiliency, can he put it together for the 6-month grind and deliver?
Year after year.
Year after year, because only then is he worth $170 million. So there is another, I can love the strikeout rate all I want, but there is a pushback there.
There's always context. I don't think this deal works if you're the Milwaukee Brewers. I do think it works. The Red Sox could survive this if it goes wrong. But if it goes right, they've actually got an incredible deal for a number one starter.
I throw out the topics, and then he gives you a scale of where they fall on the freak-out factor.
Freak-out factor.
What's your freak-out factor? One of our favorite games.
Freak-out factor. Freak-out factor. Freak-out factor.
You have to be very careful in how you say freak-out factor.
Freak-out factor. Freak-out factor scale.
Freak-out or no? What's your
freak-out factor? Freak-out factor. Freak-out factor.
Our good friend Anthony Castrovins is here, joining us from MLB.com. Freak-out factor is the segment. I throw out the topics. Anthony tells us where these topics and issues fall on his freak-out factor. Good morning, Anthony. How are you?
Good morning, Roflo. First freak-out of 2025, and a lot of material this early in the season, I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right in here. Let's talk about the torpedo bats. Freak-out factor on major league pitchers across the league getting hit with or by torpedo bats. Where are you on the freak-out factor?
This is a 0 out of 10 for me. 0 is the number of us who even noticed these things in spring training. We were not on the ball as much as the torpedo bat is. But I got one here, and it looks pretty normal to me, right? It's just a little thicker, but I would just make the point that there's no magic bat, Rofo.
that is, yeah, that's. I don't think that's a torpedo bat. That's a submarine
Okay.
bat.
Yeah, that's what we really need in MLB. But there's no magic bat, and I think that we've seen success with this. I don't think we're going to see headlines when guys go 0 for 4 with the torpedo bat. It's just the nature of things. But they definitely can make a difference for certain types of hitters. But every hitter, when he chooses his stick, has to make a compromise. The length, the species of wood that they use, the weight. These things affect everything. So with the torpedo bat, the weight is lower down, closer to the handle, so you're not going to generate as much power if you miss-hit the ball.
Yep.
So, for an Aaron Judge, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. He's the prototypical slugger, but, we've seen guys have success with it, and we should all root for it, Rofo, because we need anything that can improve contact rate across MLB.
Absolutely. Are we not doing phrasing anymore? So much to take away from there. It is early. They're 0-4. What do you think?
Well, 12.27 is their staff ERA, so let's just break the scale and go 12.27 out of 10. They're serving up more meatballs than my aunt at Sunday dinner. And Aaron Savali just hit the shelf. He's injured already. Brutal weekend in the Bronx, and everybody's talking about torpedo bats against them, but then the Royals hung 11 against them yesterday. So it's not just a Yankee Stadium specific issue for this club. And here's why I'm freaking out, Rofo. You lose Willie Adames in the offseason, key part of their lineup last year. You trade Devin Williams. You have this brutal start on the pitching side, but that's not why I'm freaking out. I think the Brewers ruined their year by trading a guy named Brewer Hicklin, outfielder in their system, traded to the Tigers over the weekend. I don't think the baseball gods let you get away with something like that without some pain. So I think that's what's going on in Milwaukee.
Things going much better for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are undefeated, but Roki Sasaki, 2 starts, 9 walks. Where is that on the freakout scale?
For me, that's a 2. That's how many starts he's made, and we know the Dodgers are a pretty good ball club. I think we were aware of that. And this is an interesting situation because we were told this was the case. This is not a finished product. Great stuff, young and pliable, and a great bargain essentially in the marketplace, but not a finished product. And you saw him get emotional. That was tough to watch the other day. Coming out of that start. And this is a major adjustment for him. The ball itself, I think, is a major adjustment, particularly for a young pitcher who's trying to, improve his command. But, the Dodgers are an interesting spot with him because, on the one hand, you think, well, send him down to AAA and let him iron it out. But his stuff is so good, his raw stuff, that he could probably just overpower people at AAA and learn nothing.
Yeah.
So they're in a spot where they're so deep and talented that I think you just keep letting them try to figure out the big league level. I don't think it affects their season a great deal. That's just my take for now. We'll see.
Sticking with the Dodgers, finally, where does Freddie Freeman, slipping in the shower, aggravating the surgically repaired ankle, where does that land on your scale?
This is 0-0 because that was the count on his gimpy grand slam, his heroic moment, many of them in the World Series last year, but of course his signature moment. And we saw he was able to manage the ankle issue, during that World Series. Great insight into that in the new World Series doc that just came out on Apple TV. But he'll probably manage this too. He had it addressed surgically, so this is a setback, no doubt. But I don't think it's something that I would freak out about too much at this stage of the season. Hopefully they can just manage it and nip it in the bud. But or maybe he just needs the ankle to be a little compromised, to keep pulling off these magic feats. But the Dodgers are just blessed. Mookie Betts vomited for 2 straight weeks and then hit a walk-off homer the first weekend of the season. So it's hard to freak out about anything involving the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think they could afford to tell Freddie, you know what, Freddie, we'll see you in August. Just take all the time you need, hang around the family. If you want to come to the park, sure, but you just make sure you're right come the late summer and fall.
That's right.
Hey, Anthony, we appreciate the time, man. Great stuff as always. Talk to you soon.